Become a part of one of the fastest growing Magic the Gathering communities today, Heroes and Legends. Check out the description below to see 2 ways to support the channel. The first is Patreon, where you can get an exclusive Heroes and Legends Classic Card token. See our Patreon page for full details. Or you can explore our Amazon affiliate store, which collects and organizes some of the best MTG deals on Amazon. If you make any purchases from any Amazon sellers through these links, a small percentage will come back to support the channel. Thank you to everyone that makes this channel and its content possible. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to this special edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch, where today we're going to talk about some cards that could be potentially great pickups for you as we move through the rest of March and into April. This is going to be the first in a new series of special market watches that I do, where we focus on cards that are potentially undervalued, that could have some growth, whether it's the short term or the long term. And a lot of these cards you'll notice are cards that WotC may have some difficulty finding a good place to reprint them. So we're not necessarily expecting a lot of these to be reprinted anytime soon. A quick note about this video as well: if you are a gold tier patron and you support us with at least $10 a month on Patreon, you do get early access to this series of videos by a few days before they are posted on YouTube. And secondly, if you go to our Amazon affiliate store, there's a link down below, you'll find a new tab on there called Picks of the Month. All of the cards we talk about today will have links to sellers on Amazon that are selling those cards, and if you make any purchases from any of the sellers, a small percentage will come back to support the channel. Always appreciated. Having said that, let's get into all these cards, and we're going to start off with some Eldrazi. I have 7 cards in particular I chose, and they're here. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the values of these cards. Now, a few things I want to say about these. First off, the pros of looking at Eldrazi are the fact that they're very hard to find a good place to reprint. Eventually, we may see some of these in a future master set. We've recently seen a dual deck, so you're probably not going to see another Eldrazi-themed dual deck anytime soon. We were just in Zendikar where we saw Eldrazi, so not to mention Innistrad. So we probably won't see Eldrazi like in a standard set for a while. It makes it really hard for Wizards to find a place to reprint these. I think it's going to be quite some time before you see a lot of these show up. Sure, they could become a masterpiece or from the vault at some point, but that doesn't really affect the value of the cards that much. So because of that, I feel like these are all pretty good pickups. Second thing I do want to point out, though, in some cases you have cards from like Oath of the Gatewatch where, yes, Oath is still in standard, and yes, it was printed very strongly. So when it leaves standard, yes, these cards could take a little bit of a hit. And again, it might take a little while before these can really start to garner some true value due to the fact that the print run was so high. But there is a really high demand for these 7 cards that I picked here. So I think by the time they do leave standard, they're going to be significantly higher than what we see here, even with the strong print run for some of these. First off, we have All Is Dust. This is the Modern Masters 2015 printing. $14.35, but seeing a lot of play right now in Eldrazi Tron. And like I mentioned, it's going to be very hard to find a place to reprint a tribal Eldrazi sorcery card. Next, we have Eldrazi Displacer, $4.54 right now. That's from Oath of the Gatewatch. Eldrazi Temple. This is the Modern Masters 2015 reprint version of this. Originally, of course, it was in Rise of the Eldrazi as a rare. The Modern Masters version was a uncommon, and this actually did get a reprint in that Eldrazi dual deck as well. But even so, it's still $8.52 for this uncommon, and it's seeing play in Bant Eldrazi, it's seeing play in Colorless Eldrazi and Legacy. It's just showing up in a lot of places right now. There's a high demand for it. Endbringer is another card, 48 cents, and it's a rare. And guess what? This is showing up in competitive modern play. It combos great with cards like Basilisk Collar, for example, which are really hot right now. And you can get a play set for $2 or less. Matter Reshaper. This has been a very strong card, not only in Standard, but also Modern and Legacy. Great card for Colorless Eldrazi and Legacy, and you can get these for only $2.19 right now. Reality Smasher, very similar, $3.47. Thought Knot Seer, a little higher at $6.74. But again, with Thought Knot Seer, you don't have Gitaxian Probe in the format anymore, so it is a decent way for colorless mana for you to get information, though be it a lot more expensive than Gitaxian Probe. And finally, you have Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. This is the most expensive one on today's list at $17.85. And yes, Battle for Zendikar is printed heavily, and this is a card that has yet to rotate out of Standard, but at the same time, it's seeing a play in everything from Modern, Legacy, even Vintage. There will be a demand, not to mention the casual market for this card. All right, let's talk about a few cycles. And the first one is actually a very recent one, Aether Revolt Expertise. Let's look at these 5 cards now. 58 cents being the lowest, 260 being the highest. And at any given time, I firmly believe someone could find something crazy broken to do with these cards. As a matter of fact, I was playing Magic Online the other day, and I posted the video where I was trying out a Infinity deck, a budget Infinity deck. And I came across a deck that's playing these Expertises and rolling them into the Dragon's Maze Fuse cards. I feel like the deck is maybe a little too inconsistent as a combo deck to get to top tier currently, but as more and more cards get poured into Modern, that deck could become more efficient, and these cards are a part of just that deck, not to mention other brews that could come up. I feel like at any given time, any of these could really ignite. So why not pick them up when they're this cheap? Tarkir Commands. Now, everything I just said about the Expertises, I was saying about the Tarkir Commands about 2 years ago on the channel. So I was really trying to encourage people to pick up playsets then, and hopefully a lot of people did. The prices have gone up. I mean, Kolaghan's Command at $11.38 and Tarka's at $7.23 are the most popular. Sure, Salmagar is only 48 cents. But still, I mean, overall, these are incredibly healthy. And at any time in the Modern meta as it shifts, I could see any of these cards being playable. They bring a lot of versatility. And because of flavor reasons, much like the Expertises we just looked at, it's not really easy for them to just get tucked into any Joe standard set. So I do think, again, that these cards have the potential, any one of them has the potential for considerable growth at any given time, quite honestly. Now, yes, Dragons of Tarkir was pretty heavily printed. Everything from Return to Ravnica forward was pretty heavily printed. But even aside from that, the demand has also gone up in recent years as more players entered the game and more players have gotten involved into Modern. And because of that, these are phenomenal pickups even at these prices today. All right, I wanted to talk a little bit about Eldritch Moon Escalate cards. In particular, the 3 rares and 2 uncommons. A lot of these are already seeing a lot of play. Collective Brutality is really doing well in Modern, already up to $9.11. But I've seen Blessed Alliance played at $1.73, Collective Defiance at $1.40. And I think the other 2 have potential as well as metas shift and new decks come and go. Having said that, yes, Eldritch Moon, it is a Modern era set from Magic, so it did have a healthy print run. But it has some interesting things going for it. It's a small set, so that's a strike against it as far as how much of it's open compared to the variety of cards that come out of it. But secondly, and maybe most importantly, it did not have masterpieces. So without masterpieces, there was a lower buy rate, which means a lower print run. And on top of that, this was sandwiched in the middle of the summer of sets. They gave us 4 sets in 4 months last summer. And this was smack dab in the middle of, I think, Eternal Masters and Conspiracy 2. So players had to really think about where they were spending their money last summer. And because of that, this set actually has a smaller print run than a lot of the Modern era Magic sets. You do want to keep that in mind. Next, I want to talk about fetch lands, and I'm not going to talk about those enemy color fetch lands everyone else is talking about. This is the perfect time to swoop in when no one's looking and pick up those Khan's fetch lands. The prices are still reasonable. They've been going up. They're very, very healthy on the market, though, as you can see. I mean, Polluted Delta, $17.28. The cheapest one right now, Windswept Heath, $12.01. These have been gradually going up. They're going to continue to gradually go up because the demand for them is very high. Yes, the print run for Khans was also very high, mostly because of these cards. A lot of folks wanted to crack packs and get them, and because of that, they printed a lot of them. But at the same time, the demand is so strong that I just don't even think it matters at this point. And as the market continues to dry up of Khans, and a lot of folks are trying to get Khan sealed product now and stuff like that, even booster boxes of Khans are going up in value. These cards are the next thing to probably ignite. Now, you do run the risk of some potential reprint in the future, but I don't think you're going to see it, at least not anytime soon. Maybe a couple of years from now when Modern Masters gets to Khans, that you'll see something like this reprinted again. Or maybe someday we go back to Zendikar and they say, all right, here you go, here's all 10 of them or something like that. But I think it's going to be a very long time. I think it's at least 2 years down the road before these are reprinted. And by then, who knows how high they could be. If you don't have your play sets, I would pick them up now. All right, let's continue with mana bases and talk about shock lands from the Return to Ravnica block. And much like the fetch lands, these are going up in value, not as quickly. Their demand isn't quite as high, but they are still very highly sought after cards. And again, until they get a reprint, they will continue to go up gradually. One thing you'll notice, the Return to Ravnica versions, a little bit cheaper than the Gatecrash versions. That's because they both had really high print runs, but Return to Ravnica had an even higher print run. So because of that, these have gone up kind of slowly, but they are still going up. As a matter of fact, I looked at all these prices about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it was about 2 weeks ago. And every single one of these has gone up in the last 2 weeks, even if it's just by a few cents. That trend is going to continue. Again, yes, you run the risk of a potential reprint. At some point, we'll probably go back to Ravnica and they'll just reprint all 10 of them again. But I don't think that's going to be anytime soon. All right, let's look at some individual cards. Fatal Push. Okay, I was hoping that this thing would eventually get below $5. It doesn't seem to be happening, so just buy your Fatal Pushes before it's too late. Here's the deal. This card is seeing a ton of play. It's awesome in Modern. It's great in every format, so it's not going to go away. Everyone's going to continue to play this card. Yes, it's uncommon, but it does appear anyway that it's more difficult to pull than most uncommons in Aether Revolt. And as we move into Modern Masters and then into Amonkhet, a lot less Aether Revolt is going to be open. So if the card's not below $5 yet, I'm not really sure when it will be. I don't really think this is going to take any sort of impact when it rotates out of Standard because it's so good in Modern at this point. Foils are amazing. I think you can still get foils for about $30. If you are someone that likes foils in their decks, this is probably the time to get those foils. Another card that's kind of hard to reprint because of the Revolt mechanic. Next we have Surgical Extraction. This is the Modern Masters 2015 version at $15.84. It's not a cheap card necessarily, but it's a lot cheaper than some sideboard options out there like Chalice of the Void, Engineered Explosives. And as a lot of players are looking for good sideboard tech and they don't want to pay those prices, they're going to be looking at this card because, yes, it is a black card technically, but you can pay life to cast it with the Phyrexian mana. You don't have to worry about actually having black in your deck. Makes for a great sideboard card. This one is going to have a big year, I think. Thoughtseize, $14.86 for the Theros version. Now, this card, of course, unlike the previous card, which had Phyrexian mana, this one's a little easier to print in other places. And also, yes, you do need to be running black mana to actually run this card in your deck. But aside from that, it's still seeing a ton of Modern play. And we did just see a reprint not that long ago in Theros, so I don't think it's a card that's necessarily on a lot of people's radar to be reprinted again. Ancient Stirrings. This is from Rise of the Eldrazi. It was a common, $6.50. This may be the highest risk card on the list today, just simply because it's highly played. People want this card, and they really need it for a lot of the versions of Tron. But it could be reprinted at any time. I mean, it isn't a card that fits into a certain niche necessarily. It could show up anywhere. It could show up as a common again, or at least maybe an uncommon. It probably wouldn't be a rare. So when that day comes, this card will probably go down quite a bit. But at least for right now, it is a very highly sought after card. Huntmaster of the Fells. This is one of the last sets, when you think of Dark Ascension and then maybe Avacyn Restored, they kind of had a pre-Modern era print run. And this is a great card. It saw a lot of play back in the day in Standard, but it's now picking up some momentum in Modern. If you can get these things for under $10, I would go ahead and think about doing it. Again, it's a difficult card to reprint, being a double-sided card. Alright, probably the most expensive card on today's list, Ugin the Spirit Dragon at $37.99. I don't think we're going to see a reprint of Ugin for 2 years. Once this becomes Modern Masters eligible, then I think we will see a reprint, but it's still quite a ways away. And because of that, this card is just going to continue to go up in price. I think this is like your next Karn or Mox Opal. I really think, even though it doesn't see as extensive play maybe as even Karn, it does see Modern play, and it does see a lot of casual play too. It's a really unique and powerful card that you can get out for generic mana, and because of that, I think this has a lot of growth opportunity. Inkmoth Nexus. Here's another one that's maybe a little risky. $24.99 for the Meriden Besieged version of this card. It did see a reprint in the Modern event deck, but that's going for a very similar price at this point. Blinkmoth Nexus, that has gone down a little bit due to some reprintings, but this one, with the Infect mechanic attached to it, it's going to be difficult to find a place to reprint it. Now, here's the reason I say it is risky. We do know that there's going to be a -1/-1 counter theme in Amonkhet. So, does that mean Infect's going to be there? Well, not necessarily. In fact, I'd be kind of surprised if they go back to Infect. But there's a chance. So you might not want to pick this card up until after we know what's going on with Amonkhet. But if Infect's not in there, and you're probably safe at that point to pick this card up, because again, I don't know where they'll actually reprint it. Finally, the last card I want to feature is Wastes. Full art waste. And you can get these things real cheap for like $0.25. And I think back to when they did full art lands in the first Zendikar. As time went on and they started to dry up, they started to actually gain value. And folks a lot of times wanted a lot of copies of them because they wanted to have them for deck building and such. Now, granted, you don't use Waste as much as you use the 5 normal basic lands, right? But next time we see Waste, maybe we won't see full art Waste. We don't know, right? We might get regular versions, and that would definitely spike interest in some of these older full art ones. And both pieces of art on these cards actually, I think, looks incredible. So if you can get like 4 of these for $1 somewhere, hey, why not do it? Just get enough of them so you have them to build your decks going forward in the future, if nothing else. All right, having said that, those are the cards I wanted to feature today. Hopefully you find this helpful and find this series helpful. Until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.